Good morning, Chargers. For this Monday lesson, what we are going to do is complete tables given a unit rate. This is very similar to what we've done the past 2 days, the difference being that today we have a new column. So first things first, let's introduce that column. We already know that we have our x and our y, which is where we get that y equals unit rate x equation. And now we have this total weight, z. Z is always going to be the total amount or total weight of our first two columns. So the first thing I need you to write down, besides your notes on the left side, is this equation here. Z equals x plus y. Write it in your notes. As you know, everything that's under my orange box should also be copied. One other thing that we can do when we're writing this z equation is instead of writing y, we could write something else. Remember this equation? You do not need to write it down. You should have this in your memory. Remember this equation, y equals unit rate x? So what this says is whenever we have y, we could actually write unit rate x instead of y. So I could write this z equation as z equals x plus unit rate x. I'll show you what I mean right here. I'm going to write that equation as well. You should have z equals x plus y and z equals x plus unit rate x. We won't need it on our first example, but we will need it farther down. So before we move on, I wanted to show you how we would do this z example. 2 plus 1.5 equals 3.5. 4 plus 3 equals 7. I gave it away. What is 5 plus 3.75? The answer is 8.75. That should have been easy. That was your warm-up. Okay, there's one more thing under this orange box. There are steps for today. I do not want you to waste time writing words. You should know these memories. They should be intuitive by this point. 1, find our unit rate. 2, write an equation. And 3, plug in the values to complete the table. We did not need to find our unit rate for this example because we already had x and y. We just needed z. Let's move on. If you need any more time, feel free to stop the video now. My example 2, I want you to copy this whole graph, okay? Copy this whole graph. Student notebooks, X, to pencils, Y, and then we have our total supplies. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find my unit rate. So I know I have 12 pencils for every 3 notebooks. So this being my X, my 3 being my X, I need to make this into a 1. And I'm thinking in my head, how would I make 3 go to 1? I would divide by 3. And when I divide by 3 on one side, no, I divide by 3 on both sides. Ratios need to be divided on both sides or multiplied on both sides to keep them proportional. 3 divided by 3 is what? 1. 12 divided by 3 is what? 4. So that means I have 4 pencils for every 1 notebook. What's most important about this is that once I find my unit rate, I know exactly how my numbers are going to compare every single time. This says that every single time, I will always have 4 times as many pencils as I do notebooks. That's what gives us the ability to fill out this table, okay? So, since one way I can do that is I know I have notebooks here, I could multiply by what number? 4. And I'll show you how that works. If I use my equation y equals unit rate x, and I could plug in 4 here, instead of writing x, I could write one of these numbers. So here I have y equals 4 times x, 4 times 5. And 4 times 5 is 20. So I would write 20 right here. And then I have 12 and 1/2. What is 4 times 12 and 1/2? The answer is 50, and that would go into my y column as well. Now, as a review from the last page, we now know our z column. Our z column is z equals x plus y. Let's go across. 3 plus 12 is 15. Again, my pen is your pen. What I write down, you should also have down on your paper. 5 plus 25. 5 plus 20 is 25. I'm moving ahead today. 12 and a half plus 50 is what? 62 and 1/2. Very good. That example was pretty easy. It mostly just used what we've used in the past. I'm about to amp it up. If you have not been paying attention, I need you to pay attention right now. Right now. We're about to get into the new material, the hardest part of the day. Here we go. This is our third example, okay? It says that we have 1/6 of a cup of rice and 1 cup of water, okay? So the way that I would write that as my ratio, I would write 1 cup of water to 1/6 rice. I know that this is my x, because it comes from my x column, and I always want this to find my unit rate, which is amount per 1. How do I get 1/6 to be 1? I'm thinking in my head, how do I get a fraction to be the number 1? We know based on Thursday's lesson that the way that I'm going to make this 1 is to multiply by the multiplicative inverse. I'm going to do that on both sides of my fraction, not just one, but both of them, because it is a ratio, and we want to keep it proportional. So I'm going to multiply 6 over 1 over here, multiply 6 over 1 over here. This is going to simplify to 1, that's why we use our multiplicative inverse, and 1 times 6 equals 6. So I am going to have 6 cups of water for every 1 cup of rice. Again, what we just did on the last page. Once I find my unit rate, that means those are how my numbers will always compare. So I know that I will always have 6 times as much water as I do rice. 6 times as much water as I do rice. So since I have my unit rate now, I have 6. I can plug that into my equation. But wait, we would normally plug in y equals unit rate x. But we don't have an x or a y to plug in there. We only have z. We only are given z. So the only way to solve our equation is to use our new equation. Z equals x plus y, or z equals x unit rate x. Okay? So here we go. We have our original equation. So unit rate x is 6x. Plugging in for z, we have z equals x plus 6x. X plus 6x. All of this should be in your notes right here. Everything I have right here should be in your notes. So if I have z equals 1x plus 6x, what is 1x plus 6x? The correct answer is 7x. I'm really just adding 1 and 6 x's. So what this means to me, really, is that I already have my z, so I can plug in z, but I need to divide by 7. I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides. Okay? So first things first, let's plug in. What is our first number? Our first number for z is going to be 70. I get that from this column right over here. So 70. I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides to solve for my x. Divide by 7. Divide by 7. 7 over 7 cancels out. So that just leaves me x. Exactly what I wanted. 70 over 7. What is the answer? Your answer is going to be 10 equals x, which means I can plug that into my x column right there. So I have 70 and I have 10. How am I going to find this y? Probably the easiest way to find that y. We know that z equals x plus y. So that would be 70 equals 10 plus y. All I really need to do is find the difference between 70 and 10. 60 equals y. Okay? That makes sense because 10 plus 60 equals 70. Okay? Just to review from what we just learned, the equation z is x plus y, 10 plus 60 equals 70. Okay. Make sure you have this work down. I'm about to erase it. Pause the video if you need it. Okay. For real, for real, for real. If you have not been paying attention, pay attention right now. This is the big thing. We are going from decimals, or from fractions to decimals, and we're doing a lot of division here. Pay attention. My last z is 43 and 3/4. 3/4 converted to a decimal would be what? If I had 3 over 4. How would I make that a decimal? It would be 0.75. Very good. So I have 43.75 equals 7x. I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to divide by 7. Divide by 7 on both sides, both sides. Okay, 7 and 7 cancel out. I just have my x. Exactly what I wanted. 43.75 divided by 7. Do it on your paper. Do it on your paper. Okay. Here I have my equation. 7 goes in to 43 6 times to get 42. I would have 1 left over. I'm going to bring down that 7. How many times does 7 go into 17? The answer is 2. Don't forget your decimal. 2 for 14. I'm going to have 3 left over. My 5 drops down. I now have 35. How many times does 7 go into 35? 5. That is my final answer. 6.25 was my what? My x. So if x equals 6.25, I'll plug it in right here. Okay? Now you could either find the difference between these two numbers, as we did before, or you could just plug it in right here. Y equals 6 times x. 6.25. What is 6 times 6.25? The answer is y equals 37 1/2. Now here I have not been consistent with using fractions or decimals, so I'm going to just, as a finisher, going to convert all these back to fractions, because I know 0.25 or 2500 is the same thing as 1/4. Okay? The last part I was just going to show you is exactly what we already did. Okay? I think we're ready for practice. Shut your laptop and raise your hand.